On our third wedding anniversary, my wife said something came up at work and canceled our candlelit dinner. But I saw her at a bar, wrapped in the arms of the one that got away. On my 24th birthday, my wife took a call from him and drove off into the night. I clasped my hands together and made a wish. This year, Ethan Cole will no longer be in love with Clarissa Vance. In 2 weeks, the divorce papers will be finalized. I could finally set them free. Ethan, are you really going to leave the country and just leave Clarissa? In the quiet cafe, Ethan Cole set down his spoon and looked at his astonished friend across the table, his voice flat. She and I are already divorced. Divorced? The news hit Jake Miller like a bomb. He was stunned for a second, then immediately furious on his friend's behalf. Clarissa actually agreed to it? After how good you've been to her for 3 years, you could have warmed a block of ice. Does she really have zero feelings for you? Ethan managed a small smile, his eyes glinting. The truth was, he didn't know if she'd really agreed or not. After all, 2 weeks ago, when he'd handed her the divorce agreement, she had signed it while taking a call, rushing off without even hearing what he had to say. She hadn't mentioned it since. Now, all he had to do was wait another 2 weeks. Then the papers would be finalized, and he would be free. Just as he was about to speak, a soft, female voice came from behind them. Are you two done catching up? Both men turned to see Clarissa Vance, dressed in a sleek black suit, striding toward them on long legs. Jake was still simmering with anger and was about to confront her. Clarissa, Ethan just told me you two D. What are you doing here? Ethan cut him off, placing a calming hand on Jake's arm and giving him a slight shake of his head. The forecast said rain. I was in the neighborhood, so I came to pick you up. Only then did Ethan offer a genuine smile. He said goodbye to Jake, grabbed his bag, and left with her. On the way back, rain slicked the streets, but the car was silent. Facing the man she had married under such strange circumstances, Clarissa's lips parted several times as if she wanted to start conversation, but the thought that she hadn't been home in 2 weeks always stopped her. After a long silence, she finally seemed to remember something. Ethan, what was that document you had me sign 2 weeks ago? It took her this long to ask. Of course, she'd been completely wrapped up in Leo Donovan. Why would she care about something so trivial? Ethan forced a smile and was about to answer when Clarissa's phone rang. Clarissa, I've had too much to drink. My head is killing me. Can you come get me? Hearing the pleading, almost childish tone on the other end, Clarissa's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Her expression hardened. Leo, I've told you 100 times, I'm married. There was a moment of silence before he replied. So what if you're married? I was supposed to be the groom at that wedding. His casual tone infuriated her. In the 3 years of their marriage, Ethan had only ever seen her cool, composed self. This was the first time he had ever seen her lose control. She slammed on the brakes, the tires screaming against the asphalt. Then why weren't you there? The other end of the line went silent. A moment later, his voice was choked with emotion. I'm sorry. I'll never bother you again. He hung up, but Clarissa's expression only darkened. Her fingers tapped restlessly on the steering wheel. After a long moment, she finally gave in, typing out a resigned message. Send me the address. When a location came through, she turned to Ethan, her face a mask of apology. He knew what she was going to say and cut her off. If you have something to do, go ahead. I'll just grab an Uber. Watching him open the door and step out into the rain with an umbrella, Clarissa felt a pang of guilt. I'll come home right after I'm done, she said softly. Ethan just nodded. He stood in the downpour, watching her car speed away, a storm of emotions churning in his eyes. This was the 7th year he had been in love with Clarissa Vance. He still remembered the first time he saw her in the dance studio, the moment he fell for her. She was in her practice leotard, a blur of graceful motion, and she went on to win the state championship, becoming a legend on campus. The guys next to him were practically screaming, explaining her story to a newcomer. That's Clarissa Vance, CS department. She's a big deal at the university from the Van Cess of Boston. Too bad her heart belongs to her childhood sweetheart, Leo Donovan. They've been together for years. She would rent out an entire amusement park just to surprise Leo for his birthday. She would swallow her pride and beg him to take her back in front of the whole school after he'd ghosted her for getting a confession from another guy. She once waited for him in a snowstorm until her hands were frostbitten, without a single complaint, even though he'd blown her off to play basketball with his roommates. For 4 years, Ethan heard countless stories of their epic romance. He always thought he'd be a background character in their love story, destined to watch them get their happy ending. Until 2 years ago, when Clarissa, fresh out of college, was set to marry Leo. Ethan wasn't invited, but he went to the wedding of the century anyway, under the guise of being a classmate. The ceremony was about to start, but Leo never showed. Clarissa went mad, calling him 99 times, only to get a text back saying he wasn't ready for marriage and had already left the country. That was the day Clarissa's patience finally ran out. She refused to indulge his whims any longer. She picked up the microphone. Today I, Clarissa Vance, have decided to choose a new groom. Are there any single gentlemen here who might be interested? Ethan, always quiet and overlooked, felt his heart pound against his ribs. He knew how many people were in love with her. The moment the words left her mouth, he shot to his feet. That day, he put on an ill-fitting suit and married a woman who didn't even remember his name. For the next 3 years, they were husband and wife, living together respectfully and peacefully. Until a month ago, when Leo Donovan came back. Watching Clarissa, torn between pushing him away and pulling him closer, Ethan knew his long dream was over. It was time to give her back her place, to let her have her epic love, and to finally set himself free. Standing in the pouring rain, Ethan sent Clarissa a text. That document you asked about, it's in the glove compartment. If you want to know what it is, just open it. It had been 30 minutes. He was already home when Clarissa finally replied. No need. If you're the one who had me sign it, I know it's nothing that would hurt me. So she wasn't going to look. Of course. She was in a hurry to pick up a drunk Leo Donovan. Why would she have time? Even if it was right there within arm's reach. The rain fell all day and didn't stop until the evening of the next. Ethan stayed home, methodically deleting every social media post about their married life. After clearing his Instagram, he closed the app and immediately saw a new photo dump from Leo. It was a series of shots of him relaxing on a yacht, each one artfully framed to include a woman's long, slender hand. Ethan knew it was Clarissa's hand. He also knew Leo was doing it on purpose. But now, he couldn't bring himself to care about such petty games. He turned off his phone, went to the kitchen, and started making a salad. Just as he finished, Clarissa suddenly came home. She was holding a cake box. Ethan stared for a moment. I thought you didn't like sweets. Why the cake? Clarissa walked over, frowning at his simple dinner. It's your birthday. Did you forget? Why are you eating so little? Ethan froze. His parents had divorced when he was 4 or 5 and left him with his grandmother. When he was 15, his grandmother passed away, and with no one left to look after him, he stopped celebrating his birthday. But for the 3 years he'd been married to Clarissa, she had remembered every single year. No matter how busy she was, she always rushed back to celebrate with him. When he returned from a long trip, she'd be so worried about his safety that she would insist on picking him up from the airport. During thunderstorms, knowing he was afraid, she would gently hold him in her arms. Ethan had thought these small gestures of care, these moments of kindness, were a form of love. Until their anniversary a month ago, Clarissa had canceled the candlelit dinner he'd booked, claiming she had to work. Feeling dejected, he'd gone to a bar to drop off a jacket for Jake, only to run into Leo. He was sloppy drunk, clinging to the woman who was supposed to be working late, refusing to let go. Clarissa's face was dark with anger as she tried to pry him off. Leo, stop this crap, let go. What do you think I am? Something you can just toss aside and pick back up whenever you feel like it. Leo wasn't listening, stubbornly wrapping his arms around her waist again and again, relentless. Finally, Clarissa surrendered. She stood there, her eyes lowered, her gaze a mixture of forbearance and love. Her voice was a complete capitulation. Leo, what am I supposed to do with you? At that moment, the bag in Ethan's hand fell to the floor. A montage of memories flashed through his mind. The hands they held tightly while pushing through a crowd, the umbrella tilted in his direction on a rainy day, the figure kneeling on the ground in a graduation gown, proposing. Every single scene was proof of Clarissa's unwavering love for Leo Donovan. He had witnessed those moments firsthand, so he couldn't deny the truth. Not even after 3 years of marriage, not even after becoming her husband, not even after receiving a few scraps of her affection. He couldn't deny it. In truth, the little kindness Clarissa had shown him was just something he'd stolen while Leo was temporarily off the stage. He had clung to that small taste of sweetness and convinced himself he had it all. But in reality, he had never possessed her, not for a single second. So, looking at the number 24 on the cake, Ethan felt nothing. He simply bowed his head politely and said, "Thank you." Clarissa lit the candles and smiled softly. "Ethan, we're married. You don't have to be so formal. Make a wish." He nodded. Just as he was about to lean forward, Clarissa's phone rang. Seeing the flicker of a tremor in her eyes, Ethan guessed who it was and sat back down. As he expected, a minute later the call ended, and Clarissa was gone. Listening to the sound of her car fading into the distance, a bitter smile touched Ethan's lips. The room was dark, the flickering candlelight casting his lonely shadow on the wall. He clasped his hands together and made his 24th birthday wish. This year, Ethan Cole will no longer be in love with Clarissa Vance. 3 days later was the reunion for the CS department class of 21. When Ethan arrived, he was surprised to see Clarissa was there too. She was the center of attention, but as soon as she saw him, she came over and sat down by his side. With the two of them sitting together, the atmosphere in the private room grew strange. Ethan knew it was because of him. In the eyes of their former classmates, his marriage to Clarissa was nothing more than social climbing. They all looked down on him, but he didn't care about their malicious assumptions. He sat there quietly, his face unreadable. The class president, arriving late, carried a large cardboard box. "Hey everyone, glad you could make it. I called this get-together to catch up, but also it's time for that write a letter to yourself in 5 years thing we did. The 5 years are up, so I figured we could read them tonight." A crowd instantly formed around the box, buzzing with excitement. "Let's make it interesting. Everyone randomly picks one and reads it out loud. Great idea. Let me go first." The most boisterous guy in the class pushed his way to the front and drew a letter. Urged on by the others, he tore it open, cleared his throat, and began to read. "To the Ethan Cole of the future, how are you? I'm writing this to you under the warm sun. I don't know where you'll be or how you'll feel when you read this, but I want to send my feelings at this moment to you." After the first paragraph, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to Ethan. Clarissa, who had been scrolling on her phone, looked up, her expression one of complete surprise. Ethan's usually stoic face tightened. He knew what was in that letter, and his stomach dropped. The guy reading it shot him a mischievous glance and continued. "This year, you're 19, a sophomore in college. You've fallen for Clarissa Vance. She doesn't know, but even if she did, it wouldn't matter. She loves someone else. Your secret crush is destined to go nowhere. You might ask me, if it's hopeless, why not give up? I want to tell you that what I love is her fearless spirit in the face of roaring crowds. The careless way she picked up a book I dropped in the evening breeze, and the polite and sincere way she turns down other people's confessions. I'm the one who gets a sore neck from stealing glances at her during the weekly assembly. I'm the one who braved a storm to secretly put medicine in her locker when I heard she got injured during dance practice. I'm the one who filled an entire notebook with her name overnight. Maybe she'll never even remember me, but that's okay. A secret crush is a one-man war, after all." When the letter was finished, the room was utterly silent. Clarissa was frozen, a sudden stiffness running through her. In a flash, she remembered that humiliating wedding, remembered the figure who had stood up without hesitation, walking toward her through a sea of judgmental stares. Only now did she finally understand why Ethan Cole had married her. It wasn't to climb the social ladder, as everyone had whispered. It was simply because he had been secretly in love with her for years. For a moment, her long-dormant heart began to beat faster. On impulse, she wanted to ask him everything, to voice all the questions she had suppressed. But before she could speak, a call from Leo came through. "Clarissa, I'm downstairs at the club. Some creditors have me cornered." He didn't even finish his sentence before Clarissa's face changed. She shot up and ran downstairs. The moment she saw the menacing group of men, she and her friend started throwing punches. She was furious, her blows hard and heavy, and soon one of the men was spitting blood. The rest of Leo's entourage quickly shielded him. He was crying, saying one of the tattooed men had touched his hand. Hearing this, Clarissa grabbed a nearby iron pipe and brought it down on the thug's hand. A scream of pure agony echoed through the night. Ethan, who had rushed down after her, saw the whole thing. He stared at the bloody, mangled hand, completely stunned. He instinctively looked up at Clarissa, but only saw her back as she shielded Leo, leading him away. The person who had been so ruthless just a moment ago was now speaking in a soft, gentle voice, comforting him. It was a level of care Ethan had never received. He lowered his gaze, hiding the emotion in his eyes, and laughed at himself. Then he turned and went home alone. It wasn't until early morning that Clarissa returned. She found him sitting silently on the sofa and finally remembered she owed him an explanation. "Ethan, about today. They were all classmates. I couldn't just ignore what was happening with Leo." Ethan didn't have the energy to call her out on the lie. He just grunted, grabbed his pajamas, and went into the bathroom. 30 minutes later, he came out, toweling his hair, and saw Clarissa holding his phone, a strange look on her face. "Ethan, why did you buy a plane ticket?" Ethan paused for a beat, then quickly recovered, taking the phone from her. "I didn't. It must be a promotional text from the airline." Clarissa wanted to ask more, but seeing that he didn't want to talk, she let it go. After all, Ethan would never lie to her, right? So she put the phone down, nodded, and went to get ready for bed. But Ethan stopped her, pulling a first aid kit from a cabinet. You got cut by some broken glass on your back. Let me take care of it. Clarissa froze, then obediently sat on the sofa and took off her jacket, revealing a bleeding gash. It wasn't deep, but because it was on her back, no one had noticed. She was surprised Ethan had. She watched his focused expression as he cleaned the wound with a cotton swab, the letter from the reunion replaying in her mind. Ethan, that letter today. Just be careful not to get it wet when you shower, or it'll get infected. Try to be more careful next time you get into a fight. You won't have anyone to patch you up anymore. Ethan didn't give her a chance to ask her question. Interrupted, Clarissa didn't quite catch the last thing he said. What was that? He shook his head, tied the gauze, and went into the bedroom. By the time he had dried his hair, Clarissa was out of the shower. She wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, standing on her toes to kiss him. He turned his head, avoiding the warm press of her lips. His voice was flat. I'm not feeling well tonight. I want to get some sleep. Clarissa didn't push it. She tucked him in and turned off the light. The next day was bright and clear. As Ethan was getting ready, he heard a commotion downstairs. When he came out, he saw Leo Donovan at the door with a group of friends. Clarissa was leaning against the doorframe, her brow furrowed with her usual impatience. What are you doing here? Before Leo could answer, one of his friends chimed in with a grin. Leo said you were his hero yesterday. He was so grateful. He insisted on coming to thank you in person. As he spoke, Leo produced a large bouquet of flowers and a beautifully wrapped gift from behind his back, as if by magic. Clarissa, thank you for helping me out yesterday. Just a small token of my appreciation. Clarissa made no move to take them, but her expression softened considerably. Seeing his chance, Leo shoved the flowers into Ethan's hands, his tone hardly polite. These are Juliet roses, Clarissa's favorite. Be a dear and put them in a vase for us, would you? At this, Clarissa's brow furrowed, a chill entering her voice. Don't attach my name to things you like. And Ethan is my husband. Please don't order him around like he's the help. The atmosphere in the room went cold. Only Ethan's expression remained unchanged. He looked at the vibrant roses in his hands, learning their name for the first time. Juliet? So that's what Leo liked. No wonder she had spent a fortune cultivating this specific variety in her greenhouse. But he said nothing. He handed the flowers to the housekeeper with a few instructions. Could you get the vases from the display cabinet on the second floor? Leo's gaze turned sharp and knowing. Ethan pretended not to notice, carrying his breakfast out to the balcony. Through the glass door, he could clearly hear the conversation in the living room. Clarissa, aren't these the origami cranes I made for fun in middle school? Why did you keep them in a crystal box for so long? If you like them that much, I'll make you a new box tomorrow. Hey, how did this Barbie set end up here? I remember throwing it in the trash. Did you fish it out? Wow. Are these the maple leaves we collected from Aspen Ridge? You actually made them into bookmarks and kept them all this time. Listening to Leo's exclamations of discovery, Ethan remembered the first time he'd come to this villa. He had asked Clarissa where all these things came from. They were little gifts from my younger cousin. I just kept them. He had believed her then, completely missing the complex emotions in her eyes, the mix of love and hate, longing and regret. All of it had to do with love. After a morning of chaos, Leo suggested treating everyone to lunch. Clarissa shut him down with a single sentence. No need. You've caused enough trouble. Please leave. Leo acted as if he hadn't heard her, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the door. His friends, afraid she wouldn't go, grabbed Ethan as well, and they all piled out. The group drove to a hot springs resort. Ethan rarely socialized with them and felt out of place. He had no desire to join in, so he found a quiet corner and watched them drink and laugh. Clarissa noticed his discomfort and walked over, intending to pour him a glass of juice. He was about to take it when she suddenly stood up and walked back into the crowd. The glass of whiskey in Leo's hand was halfway to his lips when she snatched it away. Her sharp reprimand cut through the room. You're allergic to alcohol, and you dare drink this? Are you trying to kill yourself? Leo blinked, looking at her with wide, innocent eyes. I thought it was juice. I just grabbed the wrong one. Why are you so angry? As he spoke, he swapped it for the glass of juice in his other hand, his eyes curving into a smile. Thanks. Clarissa's hand tightened on the glass she held. In the end, she said nothing, returning to her seat and handing the cup to Ethan. Looking at her distracted expression and the amber liquid in the glass, Ethan didn't take it. He picked up his bag and stood, his voice calm. I don't drink. I'm going to hot springs. Only then did Clarissa realize she'd handed him the wrong glass. Her mind was so full of Leo that she'd mistaken the whiskey for juice. She wanted to explain, but Ethan was already walking away too quickly for her to say anything. The warm water soothed Ethan's tired nerves. He leaned against the wall, watching the rising steam, and slowly drifted off to sleep. He was so used to the noise by then that he didn't hear the knocking on the door. Clarissa called his name a few times with no response. Growing anxious, she pushed the door open. Seeing him slumped over, barely conscious, her heart lurched. She jumped into the water and helped him up. Ethan groggily opened his eyes, instinctively wrapping an arm around her shoulder to steady himself. Steam filled the air, their skin touched, and the atmosphere instantly became charged. Clarissa couldn't help but stand on her toes. Just as their lips were about to meet, the sound of footsteps shattered the moment. Leo walked in, and the smile on his face froze. He stared at them, his eyes wide with unconcealed shock and disappointment. Biting his lip, he turned and ran. Clarissa froze. Her first instinct was to let go of Ethan and chase after him. She left him with only one sentence. He misunderstood. I have to go explain. Misunderstood? They were a legally married couple. What was there to explain, even if they were caught kissing? But she was still trapped in the past, still playing the role of Leo's girlfriend. That's why her immediate reaction was to explain. A person who had willingly been tamed by love doesn't break old habits easily. Watching her hurried departure, Ethan smiled faintly, his eyes turning red. He wrapped a towel around himself and opened a window for some air, just in time to see Leo storming out below. Leo threw his car door open, but Clarissa grabbed his arm. Their heated argument drifted clearly up to Ethan. Ethan was asleep. I was just worried he'd catch a cold. Do you really need to be this angry? Yeah, he's your husband. I have no right to be angry. Go back to him. Why are you bothering to explain anything to me? Your ex-boyfriend. Leo, do you have to talk like that? Like what? I'm just telling the truth. With that, the argument ended. Leo, his eyes red, shook her off, jumped in his car, and sped away. Clarissa stood there for only a few seconds before getting in her own car and following him. Watching the dust settle on the now empty road, Ethan turned silently and went to the changing room. By the time he was dressed, Leo's friends rushed over, frantic. Ethan, something's happened. Clarissa and Leo, they were in a car crash. By the time they reached the hospital, Clarissa was waiting outside the operating room. She was drenched in blood, her forehead slick with cold sweat, her eyes filled with panic. It was the first time Ethan had ever seen her look so disheveled. Her friends crowded around, asking what happened. She clutched her hair in regret, her voice choked with pain. It's my fault. I shouldn't have said those things to make him angry. I shouldn't have let him leave alone. He was just trying to get back at me. That's why he was driving so fast. Hearing her take all the blame, Ethan's eyelashes trembled. If those are just words said in anger, then what was the truth? That she was still waiting for him to come back, waiting to reconcile? Perhaps. Ethan didn't want to think about it anymore. Just then, a nurse came out, her expression grave. The patient is bleeding heavily, and the blood bank is low. Is anyone here O negative? The friends looked at each other. They were all different blood types. No one spoke up. Only Clarissa was a match. She immediately took off her jacket, changed into scrubs, and followed the nurse into the OR. Half an hour later, a nurse helped the pale Clarissa out. It was impossible to know how much blood she had given, but she was completely drained, collapsing weakly into Ethan's arms. The nurse hadn't left. The patient's condition is stabilizing, but he still needs another 400 cc. Can any of you contact another O-negative friend? Everyone had already tried calling people they knew, but no one could find match. Seeing the silent, anxious faces, Clarissa gritted her teeth and forced herself to stand. Just 400 cc. I'll do it. The nurse stared at her in shock. You've already given 600 cc. Are you sure you want to give more? Her friends' faces changed, and they rushed to her side, pleading. Clarissa, don't. I'll have my assistant call the office and see if anyone can donate. But Clarissa shook her head, her voice stubborn. Leo can't wait that long. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the bruised needle mark. Seeing her recklessness, Ethan couldn't stay silent any longer. The doctors are still doing everything they can. We can have blood transferred from another hospital. You don't have to do this. Clarissa paused for a second, then ignored him and turned away. Watching her walk back into the operating room without a second thought, everyone fell silent. Her friends sighed heavily, their voices a mixture of frustration and resignation. Whenever it has anything to do with Leo, Clarissa just loses her mind. She got in a fight for him once and injured her leg so badly she was laid up for 3 months. The day she got out, she went looking for payback. Tell me about it. In high school, she made a bet to get him a necklace he wanted and ended up skydiving from 16,000 feet. Her equipment failed mid-air, and she nearly died. Now she's risking her life again to save him. And to think I was trying to help them get back together. What a mess. They chattered on, completely forgetting Ethan was there. Hearing these stories, Ethan felt a sense of dawning horror. It was only in this moment that he truly understood how ridiculous his hopes had been on his wedding day. There was no such thing as winning someone's heart over time. Love was love, and its absence was just that. From the very beginning, he had made the wrong bet. And now, facing this total loss, he had to accept it. After what felt like an eternity, the red light above the operating room finally went out. Doctors wheeled 2 beds out, and the group surged forward. A doctor wiped sweat from his brow and looked at the unconscious Clarissa with awe. They must be in love. You don't see girls that devoted very often. Ethan stood back from the crowd, looking up at the harsh fluorescent lights, and let out a silent, humorless laugh. It wasn't until noon the next day that Clarissa groggily woke up. Before she was fully conscious, the first name that left her lips was Leo's. Was his surgery successful? How is he? Is he awake? Seeing her anxiety, Ethan, who hadn't slept all night, nodded. His voice was hoarse. The doctor said he'll be fine. He just needs to rest for a few months. A weight lifted from Clarissa's heart, but she was still worried, throwing back the covers to get out of bed, insisting she had to see for herself. Ethan tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. In the end, it was the nurse coming in with her 4-drip who blocked her path. Clarissa glanced at the large bag of medication, her eyes filled with worry for Leo. After a moment's thought, she spotted a fruit basket on the cabinet and came up with an excuse. Ethan, I called Leo's parents yesterday. They flew back overnight and should be at the hospital by now. Could you take this fruit basket over, say hello for me, and check on him? Ethan stared at her for a long moment before finally agreeing. He took the basket and left the room. Leo's room was 1 floor up. As Ethan raised his hand to knock, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, he saw Leo with his arms around a woman he didn't recognize, his voice sweet. Sweetheart, didn't you say you were going to introduce me to your parents? Why did you come alone? I wanted to bring them, but you're still recovering. The timing isn't right. How about I take you home to meet them as soon as you're discharged? Hearing this, Ethan's hand clenched into a fist. Leo had a girlfriend? They were already at the meet the parent stage? Just then, a doctor on rounds pushed the door open, startling the two inside. Leo looked up and saw Ethan, and his face instantly changed. What are you doing here? Ethan didn't answer. He placed the fruit basket on the floor and turned to leave. Leo, despite his injuries, chased after him, grabbing his arm at the top of the stairs. Are you going to run back and tattle to Clarissa? Ethan turned his head, saw the flicker of panic on Leo's face, and his voice went cold. If you have a girlfriend, why are you still clinging to Clarissa? At that, Leo raised an eyebrow, his composure quickly returning. Maybe I just want to have them both. To enjoy being adored. Can't you tell? Do you have to trample all over her feelings like this? Seeing his indignation, Leo let out a snort, his voice dripping with arrogance. I'm the one who has what it takes to make them fall all over me. Even a goddess like Clarissa. What's it to you? Are you jealous? Why don't you just admit it? Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll even give you a few pointers. His shameless pride left Ethan speechless. This silence only seemed to fuel Leo's ego. He looked Ethan up and down, his gaze finally landing on the wedding ring on his finger. You're just the guy who picked up the scraps. Why do you have to challenge me? Let me tell you something. I never even left the country that day. I just got drunk the night before and was shacked up with a couple of senior girls and couldn't get out of bed. If Clarissa hadn't thrown a fit and married you out of spite, you never would have had a chance in hell of becoming her husband. The anger Ethan had suppressed for so long finally erupted. He raised his hand and slapped Leo across the face. It wasn't a hard slap, but Leo crumpled as if he'd been hit by a truck, tumbling down the stairs. Before Ethan could process what had happened, Clarissa, just stepping out of the elevator, shoved him aside. She rushed down the steps, her face filled with anguish as she cradled a bruised and battered Leo in her arms. She looked back at Ethan, her eyes blazing with fury. He did nothing to you. Why did you have to hit him so hard? Leo deliberately showed her the red mark on his cheek, sobbing dramatically in her arms. It's okay, Clarissa. Ethan probably just has issues with me being your ex-boyfriend. I don't blame him. Let's just go. His words choked off any explanation Ethan might have offered. Seeing the disappointment clouding Clarissa's face, he knew it was useless to argue. His silence, to Clarissa, was an admission of guilt. She looked away, disappointed, and helped Leo to his feet. Without a backward glance, she walked away. After leaving the hospital, Ethan got a call from an agent. His visa was ready. He collected his documents and started packing. He tore a page off the calendar on his desk each day, and soon it was down to the last sheet. The year was almost over, and he was about to leave the city he'd lived in for over 20 years. In the past week, Clarissa hadn't come home once. Leo, however, sent a stream of taunting messages every day. 7 days left. He sent a video of Clarissa kneeling on the floor, gently massaging his calf. Ethan watched it while throwing everything he had ever bought for her into the trash. 5 days left. He sent photos of Clarissa bringing him a box of jewelry, personally placing a ring on his finger. Ethan smashed their wedding photo and threw it into the fireplace. 3 days left. An audio recording of Clarissa murmuring his name in her sleep, her voice full of longing. Ethan packed up every gift she had ever given him and mailed them to Goodwill. The villa he had once considered his home slowly emptied. His few belongings were gradually packed. The housekeeper, seeing the purge, had asked him several times if something was wrong. He had smiled, his voice light. "We're just getting a divorce." And Miss Vance agreed. Had she agreed? Ethan didn't know, but he imagined that if Clarissa saw the divorce agreement now, she would probably be thrilled. After all, her world currently revolved around Leo Donovan. 2 days left. Leo sent another message. This time, the photo wasn't of Clarissa, but of his parents. The three of them were smiling around his hospital bed. Ethan felt nothing. He didn't reply. Instead, he opened his contacts and deleted Leo, Clarissa, and anyone else connected to them. On the day he left, the first snow began to fall. Ethan carried the diaries and unsent love letters he had sorted through the night before out to the garden. The orange glow of the fire illuminated his face, turning the records of his youthful infatuation to ash. He tilted his head back, watching the swirling snowflakes, wondering how long it would have to snow to cover the embers. Lost in thought, the main gate suddenly swung open. Clarissa, whom he hadn't seen in ages, returned, her steps hurried. She glanced at him crouching by the fire before going inside. When she came out again, she stopped beside him. Looking at the pale, pink envelopes, she was reminded of the letter from the reunion. The anger she had held onto for so long finally began to soften. "I've been busy lately. Once things settle down in a couple of days, we need to talk." "Talk about what?" "The divorce." Ethan smiled, looking up at her, his voice impossibly calm. "Let's not. The thing you want most. I already gave it to you a month ago." "The thing I want? What thing?" Clarissa was about to ask when her phone buzzed. She opened it, and a smile touched her lips as she read the messages. Watching her expression, Ethan tossed the last few letters into the fire and stood up. His tall frame blocked the burning pyre behind him. By the time Clarissa finished replying, the letters had turned to ash, and she had forgotten what she wanted to ask. Ethan walked her to the door and held it open for her. A gust of cold wind blew in. Seeing how lightly he was dressed, Clarissa told him to go back inside before he caught a cold. But he insisted on seeing her off. Through the car window, she saw him raise his hand in a wave and say something softly. She didn't quite hear it, but it was probably just "drive safe" or something similar. She had heard it countless times over the past 3 years, so she didn't think much of it. The car started and quickly disappeared from view. Ethan stood alone in the snow for a long time before going back inside to put on a coat and bring his suitcase downstairs. The snow was falling harder now, dusting his hair white. The taxi was waiting at the gate. Before getting in, he turned for one last look at the villa and repeated the words he had whispered before. "Goodbye, Boston. Goodbye, Clarissa." Clarissa drove straight to the hospital. Today was the day Leo was being discharged. The night before, he had been whining about wanting to see old childhood photos, so she had made a special trip home to get them. As she carried the heavy bag to the elevator, she passed a woman whose perfume seemed familiar, a light, distinct scent. It was Leo's favorite. She just came from his room, Clarissa thought. A friend of his? A flicker of doubt crossed her mind. But the elevator arrived, and she pushed the thought away, pressing the button for the 7th floor. The moment Leo saw her, his face lit up with a brilliant smile. They flipped through the photo album, reminiscing about the past. Talking about their childhood, Clarissa quickly forgot everything else. Around noon, Leo's parents arrived to take him home. The second they saw Clarissa, they began thanking her profusely. Clarissa quickly demurred, her tone humble. "I'm partly to blame for Leo's accident. Taking care of him was the least I could do." Hearing this, Leo gently patted her hand. "I told you, my accident had nothing to do with you. Clarissa, I already had my parents come and explain everything yesterday. Can you please stop blaming yourself?" Leo's father nodded in agreement. "His mother and I have always been busy with work. If it weren't for you looking after Leo all these years, who knows what kind of trouble he'd be in? We're the ones who should be thanking you." Leo moved to Clarissa's side, about to get playful, but his mother pulled him back. You're both older now, and you're a married woman. Leo is still immature and clings to you. Please don't take it the wrong way. We'll have a talk with him. Tell him to stop bothering you." The atmosphere in the room instantly froze. Clarissa understood the underlying message. Her breath hitched for a moment before she regained her composure. The smile on her face vanished, replaced by a polite, reserved expression. Leo's expression changed too, but he pretended not to understand what his mother was saying and looked at Clarissa with a grin, trying to change the subject. "Come on, Clarissa and I grew up together. What's all this talk about being a bother? She promised to drive me home, right?" Clarissa looked up to answer, but her eyes met the meaningful gazes of his parents, and the words on her lips changed. "We did, but my assistant just called about something at the office. Since you two are here, I won't impose." With that, she turned to leave. After a few steps, Leo's mother called out to her, handing back the photo album. "Clarissa, Leo wronged you in the past, but he was young then and didn't understand the value of a true heart. Please don't hold it against him." Looking at the apologetic face of the woman who had watched her grow up, Clarissa shook her head gently. "Mrs. Donovan, I've already let go of the past. I don't resent Leo. Please, don't worry." Leo's mother sighed, her eyes full of regret. It was Leo's loss. It just wasn't in the cards for you two to be husband and wife. Your mother tells me the man you married is a good son-in-law, very sensible, and that you have a wonderful relationship. You should cherish him. He is the one worth your devotion, the one you should grow old with. Clarissa knew Mrs. Donovan meant well. She also understood that her story with Leo had ended at that wedding, the moment she had defiantly chosen to marry another man. For 3 years, she had tried to forget the past and build a life with Ethan. But how could she simply let go of someone she had loved for 18 years? So when Leo returned and relentlessly pursued her, her heart had softened. Even if they couldn't be lovers, they could at least be friends. With that thought, she had allowed herself time and again to go to his side. Honestly, whenever Leo cried and told her he still loved her, she had been moved. But those moments were like ripples on a lake, gone as quickly as the wind blew. On the verge of falling back in, she would always remember that Ethan was her husband. Time and again, she found herself lost in a fog, unable to find her way out. It wasn't until she heard those words that she felt like she was finally waking up. Thinking of Ethan's figure in the snow that morning, sending her off, a wave of warmth spread through her heart. She bowed deeply to Leo's mother, her voice sincere. "Thank you for telling me this. I understand now." After leaving the hospital, Clarissa went to her family's estate. Her mother called her into the study, her tone uncharacteristically serious. "When you first got married, I'll admit I thought Ethan's family background wasn't good enough for you, and I had my reservations. But over these 3 years, seeing how much he cares for you, how well he manages the household, and how considerate he is to us, I've slowly let go of those feelings. You're not a child anymore, and I don't want to repeat myself. Let the past be the past. Don't dwell on it. You have good judgment. You chose a wonderful husband. It's time to settle down and live your life. Marriage isn't like dating. It's a slow-cooked stew. It requires patience and consistency. You and Ethan didn't have much of a foundation before you married, and you were so young. You need to communicate clearly and promptly so things don't fester and turn into misunderstandings. Do you understand?" Clarissa had never expected her usually reserved mother to speak so earnestly about such domestic matters. But she knew her mother was right. She lowered her head respectfully. "You're right. I know what I need to do." Her mother nodded, pleased, and pushed a box across the desk. "This was the bracelet your grandmother gave me when I got married. I want you to give it to Ethan. It's your father's birthday the day after tomorrow. Remember to bring him home. We'll have a family dinner." Clarissa opened the box. Inside lay a pair of imperial jade bracelets. She stared at them, stunned. Suddenly, she was transported back 3 years to that chaotic wedding. After Leo had announced over the phone that he was canceling, both families had turned pale and stormed out. She was left alone on the stage, her heart a dead void. She had grabbed the microphone and unleashed all her pent-up emotions. She couldn't even remember what she had said. It wasn't until Ethan stood up, was pushed backstage by her frantic bridesmaids, and then reappeared by her side that she came back to her senses. The wedding march began to play. He was wearing that slightly too large suit, walking toward her step by steady step. He stood with her, enduring the stares of thousands of curious eyes. Fearless and unwavering, perhaps infected by his resolve, a spark of desperate courage ignited in her dead heart. She still didn't know her new groom's name, but she had made up her mind. She would spend the rest of her life cherishing the man who had put on her ring, who had reached out his hand to her in the darkest moment of her life. Clarissa placed the box with the bracelets in the glove compartment. As she was about to close it, she saw the document folder and tried to remember when she had put it there. Her mind drew a blank. She was about to pull it out when a call from Leo came through. Clarissa, my parents are gone. My friends heard I got out of the hospital and want to celebrate. Are you done with your errands? Want to come hang out? This time, Clarissa refused without hesitation. Leo's voice instantly deflated, and he was about to start wheedling when she made an excuse about a meeting. After hanging up, she pushed the glove compartment shut and drove home. The usually lively villa was eerily quiet. Clarissa looked around and noticed many things were missing from the living room. The hairpin she had left on the coffee table months ago, the water glass on the dining table, the throw pillow on the sofa. All small, insignificant things that Ethan had bought. Before, she wouldn't have noticed their absence. But for some reason, this time she sensed something was wrong. She called over the butler. Why is so much missing from the house? Mr. Cole threw them away, the elderly butler replied respectfully. He glanced at her expression and hesitated before continuing. Miss Vance, are you really going to D? Clarissa, on a snowy day like this, I knew you'd be home. It's been forever since we all hung out. Come on, let's go for a drink. A group of her best friends came in, linking arms with her and pulling her out the door without another word. The unfinished word, vorse, was lost in the noise. Though they went for drinks, her friends, mindful of her health, only let her have water. She watched them play games, took a couple of sips, and then pulled out her phone. She found Ethan's contact and typed a message. Are you out today? Where did you go? What time will you be back? Send me the address. I'll come pick you up later. The roads are slippery. Be careful not to fall. Before she could hit send, one of her friends, who had just finished a call, had a strange look on her face. She grabbed Clarissa and shouted to the others, let's go, let's go. Change of venue. There's a new show to see. Everyone was confused by her cryptic announcement, but the promise of a show was enough to get everyone excited. They all piled into a car. On the way, they kept asking where they were going, but she wouldn't say a word, only shooting occasional glances at Clarissa. The destination was a bar they had never been to before. Just before they got out, the friend pushed Clarissa to the front and said some strange things. Clarissa, I've been hearing rumors about this for a while. I kept it to myself until I was sure. I wanted to tell you. Whatever you see in there, don't blame me. I'm really doing this for your own good. They had all grown up together. Hearing her friend's serious tone, the smile on Clarissa's face slowly faded. She looked at the door in front of them and hesitantly reached out her hand. The moment the door opened, the scene inside was laid bare. In the pulsating, neon-lit hall, everyone was lost in the deafening beat of the DJ's music. A white spotlight shone down, illuminating a couple locked in a passionate kiss in the center of the stage. Even from a distance, Clarissa recognized Leo instantly. He had his arms around a flamboyant, beautiful woman whose face was flushed in unnatural red. His hands roamed restlessly over her back. He looked nothing like the playful, spoiled heir she knew. A complete stranger. For a moment, the group of women at the door stood in stunned silence. In stark contrast, the cheering in the hall only grew louder. Damn, he just got out of the hospital, and he's already going this hard? They've been kissing for like 30 minutes. Don't they need to breathe? They're boyfriend and girlfriend. What's wrong with a little kissing? You just jealous. Speaking of which, Leo's been with his girlfriend for like 6 months now, right? Hasn't he gotten tired of her yet? How long you think this one will last? Longer than Clarissa? Don't even try to guess what's on Leo's mind. He's just playing around. Look at Clarissa. He dumped her 3 years ago, and now that he's bored, he's back to teasing her like a puppy. Hearing the callous words of Leo's friends, Clarissa's own friends saw red. Unable to stomach the insult, they pushed their way through the crowd. One went to kill the music, another flipped on house lights, and the rest jumped on stage, surrounding the couple who were still tangled together. The sudden change shattered the party atmosphere. Leo, snapping back to reality, saw the intruders and his face soured. He scanned the room, and not seeing Clarissa, he let out a small sigh of relief. He glared at the unwelcome guests. How did you find this place? I didn't invite you. What are you doing here? His friends, already furious, started shouting back. It's a public bar. You could be here, so can we. We need an invitation from you. What? On a honeymoon with your new girlfriend. Afraid we'd see and tell on you. Not wanting to lose face in front of his friends and girlfriend, Leo shot back without thinking. Afraid? What do I have to be afraid of? I'm just dating. You think I'm scared of Clarissa finding out? She's a married woman. Is she going to police her ex-boyfriend's love life? His buddies roared with laughter and whistled. Seeing them smirk, a knot of unease tightened in Leo's stomach. He realized something was wrong, but before he could ask, Clarissa's friend spoke first. So the act is up? Done playing the heartbroken lover Who can't move on? So this is the real you, huh? Leo, you've been with another woman for half a year. Why are you still messing with Clarissa? Hearing this, Leo's girlfriend's expression hardened. He hadn't expected things to blow up like this. Knowing he was in deep, he started talking without thinking. Isn't she the one who came begging me to take her back? I can't stand her. Why would I go looking for trouble? She's been clinging to me like a stray dog. I can't shake her off. I got sick of her 3 years ago. That's why I deliberately skipped our wedding. It had nothing to do with going abroad. The only person I love now is my girlfriend. And you mean every word of that? When the friend demanded. Leo didn't want to back down. He jutted out his chin like a proud peacock. Of course, even if Clarissa herself were standing right here, I would say the exact same thing, word for word. With that guarantee, no one said another word. The friends silently stepped back, clearing a path. Seeing their synchronized movement, Leo's right eyelid began to twitch violently. He turned his head and saw the familiar figure standing by the door. His heart, which had been pounding with bravado, instantly turned to ice. The crowd, which had been enjoying the show, followed his gaze. 3 years later, Clarissa was once again the center of everyone's attention. But her face, surprisingly, was blank. The anger, disappointment, pain, and humiliation everyone expected to see were nowhere to be found. All that was left was the calm of a ship that has weathered the storm, the quiet of a final curtain call. Across the sea of faces, she looked at the man on the stage whose face had gone deathly pale. The man she had loved for so many years but could never truly have. The groom who had abandoned her at the altar. In that moment, he was a complete stranger. It was as if she was seeing him for the first time. And yet, she had known him for 18 years. I heard every word. Thank you for not lying to me anymore. For finally telling me the truth, Leo. Amidst the whispers, Clarissa's voice was calm and steady. It wasn't a confrontation. It was like she was commenting on the weather. The friends on stage, seeing her composure, were suddenly reminded of the first time Ethan had appeared before them 3 years ago. The same expression, the same tone, the same concise words. I'm currently single. If you have no objections, I could be your new groom, Clarissa Vance. After calmly delivering her line to the entire room, Clarissa lowered her gaze, a faint smile on her lips. She was thinking of Ethan, too. Only now did she finally understand the immense pressure he must have been under when he stood up and walked to her side that day. Such a quiet, unassuming person had done that for her. And it had taken her 3 years to see the depth and intensity of his love. Thankfully, it wasn't too late. Clarissa didn't waste another second on things that didn't matter. She turned and walked away, her steps firm and resolute. Back in the car, she opened her phone and sent the message she had typed earlier. A notification sound chime. Thinking it was an instant reply from Ethan, she glanced down. In the middle of the screen, a glaring red exclamation mark stood out. Below it was a prompt to add him as a friend. She blinked, her eyes darting from the contact name to the profile picture. It was him. It was definitely Ethan. But why would he block and delete her out of the blue? Clarissa couldn't understand. She sent a few more messages, but they were all met with the same rejection. Ripples disturbed the still surface of her heart. Logic told her something must have happened. But emotion fought back, trying to soothe her with rationalizations. He saw me off just this morning. He seemed normal. He even waved goodbye. Maybe he just did it by accident. Clarissa tried to calm herself, but the car's speed betrayed her frantic state of mind. She ran 10 red lights to get home before dark. The house was just as it was when she left, still and cold. So cold it no longer felt like home. She saw a light on in the kitchen and, thinking Ethan was inside, making hangover soup, she rushed in. There was soup simmering on the stove, but it was the maid watching over it. Seeing Clarissa, she bowed hastily and ladled a bowl for her. Clarissa hadn't been drinking, but she took a small sip. The hot soup wasn't the familiar taste she was used to. She frowned. Is it Mr. Cole making the soup? The young maid's eyes widened in panic. I am so sorry, Miss Vance. Mr. Cole taught me how to make it before he moved out, but I didn't write it down. Just a moment. I'll make a fresh pot right away. Of all the words in that stammered apology, only 2 registered with Clarissa. Moved out. Her pounding heart plummeted into a dark abyss. When did he move out? This morning, right after you left.